Cagliostro. Why is it your dirty habit to take charge of people like me and put them on microphones?
The situation has changed. This one was created for one single purpose. Your podcast.
What's happening, Hellspawn? Welcome to another episode of Spawnography. I am one of your two Spawnographers, George Marston, pronouns they, them, or she, her. With me, as always, is my beloved dear friend and co-host,
Pierce Lyden, pronouns they, them. How you doing, George? We're covering a weird one today.
We're covering a weird comic, but I'll tell you what, I actually had a good time reading it, and I'll tell you why. I had a pretty nice afternoon. I've had a pretty interesting and fun weekend. We're on Tuesday right now.
Mm-hmm.
God, time just keeps rolling by. I saw an old friend who's been out of town for years. I hadn't seen him in person in maybe almost a decade, and it was great to reconnect. We
haven't seen him in a dog's age.
That's exactly right. And, we connected like two old dogs learning new tricks, I guess.
Like John Travolta, Tim Allen, old dogs?
God, no. Fuck.
Oh, no. That's Wild Hogs.
The gay version of that.
Excuse me. That's Wild Hogs.
Oh, yeah.
Which sounds like the gay version
was the
of that.
Shaggy dog.
You ever think it's weird that we say when something's a long time in a dog's age, but dogs don't really live that long, but cats do live long, so we should say in a cat's age?
The oldest cat in the world right now is 76 years old.
That's what I'm talking about. Anyway, continue.
And his name is, I don't know, that's not true. I was trying to think of like a jazz guy name, like the coolest cat in the world would be like Jazzman.
Top Cat.
Jazz, Top Cat. Great. That's a cartoon that is mid. Anyway, boy, we're really just getting right into the thick of it. I saw a good friend today as well. She introduced me to her son, which is cool. I don't hang out with a lot of kids. I've met him before, like as a much younger child, but like he's in middle school now, and like I met him and it was fun. He's a funny little kid. It was like, it was very cool because he's like a little queer kid. Like he's openly very queer. He has a boyfriend, and his mom told me that he and his boyfriend have one of those little like 2-piece heart necklaces.
It's adorable.
But it's Deadpool and Wolverine.
Who are canonically boyfriends. So
right. And no, I was like, that's the sweetest thing I've ever heard. I'm so glad that you get to have that in your life, and that he gets to have that and to just be himself and whatever the fuck. That made me feel
sounds like a
pretty
great
good
parent.
Yeah, she's great. And I let her borrow my bone compendium, the complete bone. That is not a metaphor. The Jeff Smith comic. She told me she had picked up a few like single issues here and there at thrift stores, and I was like, well,
got the whole thing.
Definitely you need to read this.
Now, did you sneak the kid the first compendium of Spawn?
Actually, I should. He probably would dig it. We talked about My Hero Academia.
Nice.
Because he's a kid, he's into
anime.
Anime. Yeah.
And that's, I mean, as far as superhero anime goes, it's extremely popular. So yeah, I get it. I watched the first 3 seasons of it. I had a good time.
Oh, the season where like the kids have to go up against a supervillain team way too early.
Yeah.
And like, what's his name? God, I can never remember character names.
How's he look?
The main character.
Oh, Midoriya.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Literally the only name I can remember from that show is my favorite character, which is rainy season hero Froppy.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, just perfect. anyway, yeah, we talked about that, so that was pretty cool.
I like My Hero, and I enjoy talking about it with kids because, one, they don't think that I'll know what it is because their parents have no idea what it is.
Right.
And then, like, I was talking about, oh my God. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. There was a kid wearing it at hockey, and I was like, "Oh, you like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure?" And he kind of looked at me, and I was like, "Don't worry, buddy. I know that your parents don't watch that with you." Like, it's not like anything too bad. It's not anything worse than
No, but I'm
we
sure
grew up
it's like
watching. But I'm sure that
PG-13
it's
or whatever.
weird, and it's also just weird. Like, if you saw an episode of it like out of context, you'd be like, "What the fuck are you watching?" But in context, it does make a little bit more sense.
Kids deserve stuff like that.
Yeah,
kids deserve to have things like that.
And
you know, that's kind of, it was funny talking about like My Hero Academia in particular, because like he knew all the names of all the characters way better than I do, because I just have memory problems and I'm super fucking old and I have infinity tertiary X-Men stuck in there already.
Yeah.
But he was just telling me characters, and like he was talking about, like, do you know canonically that this is the case, and blah blah blah, and I was just like, this kid reminds you of myself in a way that I think is very funny, and I like this a lot, and it made me feel very glad, first off, that, you know, his mom, my good friend, trusted me to hang out with him. We were not like hanging out alone, she was there of course, but like to hang out with her kid, who she's very obviously like protective of, and very careful about who she, like, which adults she's like bringing around him.
Yeah.
And also it was kind of nice just to meet a kid that was like, made me feel a little better about the future in a nice local way. You know what I mean? Like this kid's doing good. This kid's getting to be himself. He's got people fighting for him and taking care of him, and that makes me feel happy for him, because you know, sometimes that's not everything. A kid doesn't always get that.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, it's one of the reasons that I like keep coaching. Today was the last day of our fast feet practice, and we gave the kids medals for
who got to be osmium.
Anyway, we're here to talk about an interesting artifact in the world of Spawn.
You hit that segue at exactly the 15-minute mark, Pierce. We're just so good at this.
It helps that there's a timer, but
I wasn't looking at it until you said that.
Today we're covering technically it did not come out as a one shot. It's sort of a one shot. It's 44 pages. I've seen it listed as like a graphic novel in places.
It's like a folio, basically.
Yeah.
Like if you are familiar, it's a European folio.
In Europe, though, it came out in two pieces across, because Spawn was distributed a lot different. So like Spawn number 57 in Europe actually contains Spawn 100.
It's a lot like how they did Marvel UK and everything. Right, they would split stuff up, and
or you like double or triple print stories within one issue. So like you're getting more for your money or whatever. It is what it is. It's fine. We are not going to get into the nitty gritty of French publishing, but we will talk about it a little bit because it's relevant to the creation of this story and like why it exists. This is Spawn, and I'm going to butcher this. Simony.
Simony.
Spawn
Simony.
Sure. All right.
Simony is a sin. Simony is basically selling
like spiritual artifacts, right?
Right. Or in some cases, selling spiritual, what's the word I'm looking for? Salvation, selling salvation. The church used to do things like selling, like basically carbon offsets for sin. And then that became simony. And simony can also include selling religious artifacts, exactly, which is what relevant this story here is about. Yes.
Yeah. So it's getting covered here because it happens after number 100, but sometime before Jim Downing. So we're covering it here because why not?
It could kind of fit in almost anywhere. It's, you know why it fits in here, I think, is because of Mammon.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. It's more, I mean, we're going by Blake Whitlow's Spawn reading order, which if you're looking for, you just Google that and you'll find the Google Doc. It's really helpful. Thank you, Blake. It I think he kind of puts it there because it can go anywhere, and you might as well just put it right after 100. There's no mention of Malbolgia here. Malbolgia is dead anyway. It did get printed in 2002, 2004. So like where it's printed a few years in the future from where we're at in current continuity at 102, but I think that that's okay.
Because this is also Al.
Right, exactly. So it has to be Al. And then Cog has to sort of be around doing stuff. And I think that between the Cog and the Mammon of it, it works out that it's here. So we're covering it. Also, it was pretty easy to track down. So one thing, we both have the hard copies of this. So the different Spawn logo we'll start to see more of that type of logo as we continue moving forward. I actually really like this printing. Like the book itself.
It's not bad.
We don't talk about that a lot, but
the thing that I like here is that it has the names of the the French writer and artist, and then it also says
Capullo
McFarlane because they did a pin-up in the back. So they could put their name on the spine.
I think also if you didn't know what it was, you might see Spawn, but then you see names that you're not familiar with and a weird word after Spawn, and you might not even look at it if it doesn't say Capullo McFarlane. So,
and it is, as you said, a pretty interesting artifact. Artifact is the word in a lot of ways to describe both the story and the plot. And I think that before we get into it, you know what you should do, Pierce?
What?
Hit me with those credits.
You got it. This is Todd McFarlane. Image Comics presents.
Like my extremely dramatic pause.
Is that your bit now, or you're just gonna?
No, I just did it that time.
All right.
Or maybe it is. Maybe I'll triple it.
Todd McFarlane, Image Comics presents Spawn Simony. Credit Semic Studios gets a credit right up top, and they're the ones that put this together with sort of Todd's blessing. So
right, they're the kind of the French publishers of Spawn.
Correct. Synopsis by Jean-Francois Porchereau, writer Alex Nikolovich, artist Alexei Briclot, it's fine. Lettering, French version, Hervé Grayson, editors Jean-Francois Porchereau and Terry Mornay, editor-in-chief Terry Mornay.
Yep.
It's interesting it says lettering French version, and then it doesn't credit an English version letterer, so that's weird.
It is very weird,
and also
there's a lot weird about
and
this.
The translation is also not credited. So
no, and it has the feeling of
early Google Translate.
Yes, like a very frank and strange translation. There are some places where, boy, they talk about tunic magic a lot and tunic power. We'll get into that. It's pretty interesting. The story itself has its ups and downs. I think that it's kind of cool. It's got some cool bits in it. Some of the art is really interesting.
I think that the general idea here is this is the overview so that it's a kind of breezy comic, and that's because these characters don't really matter. They don't show up again.
Right.
This is some stuff, or they don't show up again to my knowledge, but I don't really think that they show up again in a meaningful way. This feels like it. I mean, it feels very much like, we want to tell a Spawn story, but we don't want Spawn to be the complete focal point. We want the sort of idea of Spawn to be the focal point. The world, it's set in the world of Spawn. It's not unlike the Harry Houdini thing.
Yeah,
in a weird way.
A weird kind of strange side artifact. Honestly, to me, it almost fits in really with a little earlier, if you really think about it, where Spawn was kind of jet setting around the globe, righting wrongs and finding weird sinners and stuff. Like, he visits a few different locations.
True.
Him kind of popping into France which like that's really what this is. It's like Spawn Goes Paris. And what is it? Rugrats in Paris?
Yeah. It's the
That's
third one.
right. That's right. Well,
Wait, is that the third one? Is that the one with Wild Thornberries?
I don't know. I only know the name of it.
That's the one where the dog Spike starts talking. Want to know why?
Dude, because of absinthe?
No, because of Eliza Thornberry. Her whole thing is that she can talk to animals.
Oh.
You know who's the voice of the dog?
Who?
Bruce Willis.
Oh. That is a very strange in-joke for like a 50% reference for like the oldest, most boring fucking people. Wow.
It's a
They
Look
gotta
Who's
give the
Talking
parents
reference.
something. Exactly. They gotta give the parents something.
Shout out to Blank Check for me knowing that, because it just came up in their Look Who's Talking. That this exact thing came up in their Look Who's Talking episode. So
wow, kismet that I even knew to mention it. Rugrats in Paris. Never seen it. So there you go. There you have it, folks. Welcome to Rugratsography.
why don't you think that the babies? Why couldn't they understand dildo?
Dildo?
Why couldn't the babies understand dill? Tommy's little. I said dill though.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm not doing a pausing bit. I'm just trying to catch my breath. I don't fucking. Well, maybe there's different. Maybe he hadn't.
We're not doing this.
Layers of consciousness hadn't developed yet enough, or they were on a different. I don't. He's not a super baby, or he is.
All right.
A baby genius.
Okay. Anyway, this comic kind of starts off. It's sort of Spawn does National Treasure, or really Cog does a National Treasure, or like an Indiana Jones.
This is the Fifth Element. Straight up. Have you seen the Fifth Element?
Yeah, recently? Of course. Is it though?
Well, the Fifth Element starts with a archaeologist digging in a tomb site with a young guide or assistant shining a plate of light inside. The light is shining in, and every time it drops, the guy yells, "Aziz, light!"
Oh.
So this is just straight up lifting a bit directly from the beginning, and then the light drops, and that's when the aliens come in. So they're just straight up lifting a bit down to the dialogue from the Fifth Element, which is a
great movie
reference, of course. Yes, it is, made by a terrible person, unfortunately, who is also an icon in the French comics world.
Well, so Fifth Element bit to start, but we are in Sinai last year, an archaeological expedition in the An Nakal sector. Dr. Shankara Dimpour from the Cambridge University thinks she's on the verge of major discoveries in early Christian era tombs. And she yells for the light again, and a voice says that Aziz won't answer anymore. And it is clearly our friend Cagliostro. He basically says that he needed to, there are some spells in place to not allow him into this place, but she broke the seal, so he's able to go in. And then we cut to the Paris catacombs where there are like foot soldiers kind of getting wrecked.
This is very Akira. Not to say everything's a reference, but if you have seen or read Akira, there is a pivotal scene, at least in the first like volume or two of Akira, in the Akira the film, towards the end, where Kaneda and some of the terrorists, or whatever they're called, terrorists, freedom fighters, break into the facility where Tetsuo is being held to break him out, and there's this big fight in the sewers, and they're getting torn up. It's very similar to that in tone and vibe.
Yeah.
This is basically
interesting.
interesting.
What was that?
I said the art here is pretty interesting. The first couple
Yeah.
pages are kind of whatever. This sequence I liked quite a bit, like very dramatic.
I think that so Briclot. That's how I'm gonna keep pronouncing it. I'm so sorry
Sure.
if you are Alexi Briclot and you are listening, and that's not
Or
how to say your name.
Briclo, maybe.
Briclot, sure. What's interesting is, so I know his art mostly from Magic the Gathering.
Oh,
He does a ton of Magic the Gathering cards,
makes
and I
sense
can
given that
kind
he is
of
kind of doing digital painting here.
yeah, and I can kind of see what he's good at and what he isn't. These kind of more dynamic scenes here work a lot better than when he has just like three guys in a room talking.
Yeah,
Which
and
is
there
which
are
is what we're
some.
gonna get to. These this is the French FBI. These like guys with guns, and they leave the sewers after one of their friends, MacGruber, dies. Which MacGruber I thought was funny.
MacGruber.
And they leave, and there's like a Constantine looking guy following them, and he heads. They say that they're going to report to the cardinal and await new orders. This guy heads to somewhere, commissioner, the police commissioner. I'm not really sure who's who or what they are.
I'm going to open up real big right now and say that the plot of this was incredibly difficult to follow because the translation, we kind of mentioned it, the translation is not really done with much care or specificity. It's kind of like, okay, this is technically correct in English,
Yeah.
but this is not how people speak in English.
Yeah.
Clearly done by the work of like just a literal one-to-one translation, not a localization, as they say, to make it flow or seem correct to native readers.
Yes. So what we're to, but what's weird is that when you look at the plot as a whole, it is pretty simple. So the plot as a whole is there's this artifact that everybody's after, and the everybody in that is the Vatican, the French FBI, Cagliostro, and Mammon's not really after it, but he kind of is, or I guess he is after it, but we find out later that that's why Cog's after it. And
Yeah.
and is there one other entity that I'm not clocking here?
Cog and his agent, who we'll learn about, which is the lady we saw before, the doctor.
Right.
Spoiler alert, is now working for Cog, and we'll sort of learn why.
Right. We've got the Secretary of France, who we meet, who's just like,
Right.
you're supposed to keep this shit under control. There's the commissioner, who is there.
He's like an investigator working alongside the cardinal guy, who
Right.
is there for the Catholic Church.
For the Vatican.
Right. It's very hard to piece together if you are trying to read the English version. They're all looking for an artifact. They are looking for this artifact that has been stolen and is being used by some secret laboratory down in the catacombs of France that was trying to be the guys who were killed, the soldiers that were killed, were trying to get in there because they're doing some kind of experiment that the Vatican knows will basically create a hellspawn. They're trying to create a hellspawn.
Yeah. And we find out that the artifact is what they keep referring to as a tunic, and it's a scrap of a K7 Letha, essentially. It is a scrap
like
of Spawn's cape. Of a Spawn cape. A Spawn. Not the Spawn. And one of the ways in which, and basically, so they have a whole lab set up, and their idea is that they're going to bond these like zombified cyborg versions of dead Secret Service or dead FBI officers to it through some process that is unclear to us. It doesn't make sense, but they seem to have figured it out. And
they're basically trying to create like a Spawn Robocop.
Yeah.
It's almost like, it almost feels... The frustrating thing about this is that if you look at just the plot and you dig into it kind of like we're doing now and you figure out exactly what the hell's going on,
it's kind of okay. It's kind of like,
it also
I would read
feels
that.
like a successor of like the Curse story, where he's got like, he's trying to separate Spawn from his his costume and all that stuff. And honestly, it is a little bit kind of it's a strange story, and it's written in a strange way.
I think that the thing that's fun about it, and the reason that if I'm Todd McFarlane and I'm greenlighting this story, the fact that they're like getting the Catholic Church involved, and they're like, there seems to be like, there's the kind of machinations, and we talked about this a little before we started recording, where I said this does feel like an extension of the thing that Todd keeps saying he wants to do with Spawn,
Right.
which is tell a story, but have Spawn be part of the mise en scène, essentially.
Right. He's like a vibes character.
Yeah, until like maybe he has to do something eventually.
To quote Kurt Russell, or partially quote Kurt Russell,
it's all in the reflexes.
To paraphrase Kurt Russell about Tombstone, that's what they did with his version of Wyatt Earp when they had to cut down the script significantly, was they turned him into what we'll call a vibes character, where he's there to set the vibe of the story, and he's there to like be the catalyst for what other characters are doing and saying, but he's rarely the one actually saying the stuff or being the focus of attention.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't get any interiority from Al here. We do get one conversation between Cog and Al, where Cog, once he realizes kind of exactly what's going to happen with the K7 Letha that has escaped, or gotten into the clutches of these evil French occultist secret service people, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know.
They're like, I don't know. So, okay, the factions here, to break this down more clearly, is because the story is just moving. It's just going person to person. What happens next in the story is that as the Cardinal is explaining to the secret agent guy who's helping him that the artifact that they're trying to recover is actually something special or magical, and not just some fake hokey thing.
Yeah, this time it's real because somebody stole the certificate of authenticity.
Right. This time it's real. And Cog goes to Spawn and is like, look, they're trying to create Hellspawn capable of destroying you.
Right. And a big part, what we can infer as Spawnographers, the reason I think that this thing would be able to kill Spawn is that it doesn't have the deal in place. I know that we've not had the power meter in a really long time, but because this entity would not be bound to some deal, like I have to imagine that the point of the power meter was that that's Malbolgia's control, right? Like that's the kill switch essentially. So if you have that without the kill switch, then you just have a very powerful being, which we know Spawn to be, and we know the case.
Well, we've seen before. Sometimes what happens when like an aspect of Spawn's biology or whatever gets into something that it's not supposed to, with the heap.
Shout out to the heap.
The heap. The heap was created, of course, by a little glob of necroplasm that seeped into the earth and became like nature's revenge. Love the heap.
Bring back the heap.
Story. The heap was awesome.
That's what we should have told Todd.
You know what? I love that
missed opportunity.
I forgot about the heap when we were talking to him. Otherwise, it would have been all heap all the time. Now, Todd, when can we get a 3-foot tall heap action figure?
Truly, with heap action.
Yeah, with like a big mouth with lights in it.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
Anyway.
Yeah, this is dangerous. Like, and Cog is trying to be like, yo, this is dangerous. You need to deal with it. And he goes, fine, I guess I'll do it. And he goes and he breaks into the lab, and then he meets the Necrocop, which is that's what his official name is. I don't think it's actually in the comic. It's only in the back. It's only in the back matter. And like Necrocop is, again, this is how you elevator pitch this, is like, yeah.
It's because of Robocop. Right. I get it.
It's Spawn versus a Robocop, but he's a dead guy, so he's a Necrocop.
Spawn.
Yeah.
So yeah, they have this little scrap of like a Spawn cape, and Spawn, along with the 2 other guys, the Secret Service agent and the Cardinal, break into this lab. They manage to activate the Necrocop. Throughout all of this, we're kind of breezing over a lot, but the art in here, once they get into the laboratory, like once it's Spawn in the lab with the Necrocop, this is where shit starts to kind of kick ass to me. I
Yeah.
love the hot colors on like the guns. This is like, yeah, I think this was 2002 in France, 2004 in the US. So this is like an early example of a comic that was fully digitally painted by one guy, like taken from start to finish. It was with a digital medium. It's interesting to see how much of this kind of technique and how much of what he's doing here still kind of resonates in the art we see like that today. Like, okay, I'm looking at this 2-page sequence here where they are activating the Necrocop, where they're saying rise and defend your masters.
Yeah.
And the use of like the lightning and like how that is rendered, and when you look at the page opposite that, you have like Cog's assistant doing her like psychic stuff with like the circles. This all looks so very much like Christian Ward to me.
Oh yeah, totally. It definitely, this does feel like a proto Christian Ward type of art. I will say that Briclot's art on his like magic cards now is a lot. I would say that some of this is not readable, and part of it is because the actions within the panels is not like, what are they
Right.
do? I, it's not poorly rendered necessarily, but it is confusing to look at because you're not exactly sure what you're looking at. But when it hits, it's actually hitting really well. This also is a funny comic to read because it is employing none of what Capullo, McFarlane, Medina do.
Right. It's not the usual Spawn visual language.
Right. I think that that is also the thing that sort of throws me about reading it. However, when Spawn shows up right after they bring the Necrocop to life, hell yeah, that shit rules.
Oh yeah, him blasting down through the ceiling.
Yeah, and he
his
says,
cape
"Here you
going
are, my
everywhere.
brother,
Brother in
damnation."
damnation.
Hell yeah.
I love that. Yeah, this whole sequence is awesome. There are times when the fight choreography is a little claustrophobic.
Yep.
But there are also spaces where I can really see how this guy wound up being a magic card artist. Like this panel at the bottom of one of the pages in the middle of the fight where like they're shooting lightning out of each other's like torso, and then
Yeah.
Necrocop is just like laid against the wall with like lightning bolts all over him. Boy, we sound like the biggest fucking like dorks trying to describe this right now. Usually we're like, oh, the visual language, and we're just like, they got lightning bolts shooting out of them and all around them. But it is that panel of the Necrocop like kind of wrapped up in Spawn's chains with lightning shooting out of his chest absolutely looks like a magic card.
Yeah, for sure. It looks like negate or something.
Right.
And actually too, like the next page works. Like there's a lot of stuff here that I would say like works as far as comic book storytelling. It's just when you have two guys who have basically the same costume trying to fight, and the biggest indication of them is a giant red cape. A little hard to figure out what to do. But I like this close up on Spawn's eyes here. I really like the inking. And I like actually what the letters do for Spawn specifically with the little green sort of bubble that's like not quite around his, that like is like a parentheses
right.
on his.
The lettering is
lines.
Interesting. Yeah, it doesn't have word balloons.
Most of the lettering is
like
bad
word
because
arrows.
it doesn't have word balloons. And
yeah, it's
then
an
it gets
interesting
okay.
choice. It definitely gives it a feeling of a comic that is not an American comic.
Yeah.
And in an interesting way. Like this is very much a European comic in style and format and structure and the way that it looks and the way that it reads. I bet in French it's probably pretty fucking good, actually.
It also, though, does feel like it is trying to conform to something more American. Like if the translation was better, I didn't know, I wouldn't know.
I think you're
French.
right. I think you're exactly right. It does feel like a European artist doing their best version of like American style superhero action.
Yeah. I also love, Spawn dispatches of the Necrocop.
He absorbs the piece of the cape into his own.
Yeah, and even though he notices that the Necrocop is trying to do that to him, and he's like, yes. You will not rob me of the little power I have left. Which is really
so we have kind of breezed over something that I think we should actually talk about,
sure.
Which is that they describe this as the tunic of like Jesus.
They keep saying that it's like Jesus's shroud. So like that is an important artifact. Whether or not it's been debated whether or not like the shroud that we have found is what it is, but supposedly it does have like powers. But yes, they keep referencing that is what this is, and it's not, because we know better, and this is a Spawn comic and it's red.
Right.
But yes, they keep kind of throwing that out there. And the other detail that they throw out there, and this would have been relevant much earlier, kind of in the 80s, there were those documentaries about, we found Noah's Ark. We found the Ark of the Covenant.
Now is basically Ancient Aliens.
Yeah. And it's so funny. And my dad doesn't listen to this podcast, but I had a conversation with my dad. This had to be like during the pandemic at some point. And like, my parents are very religious, as we've covered on this.
Right.
And basically one of the like reasons that my dad was giving for like, this stuff's real. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he goes, they found all the stuff. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he goes, it was on TV. They found all the stuff from the Bible. It's all real. And I was like, that was all fake. He's like, what are you talking about? I was like, that was like found out to be fake before the internet was a thing. It just happened to be in the 80s when that happened.
He just watched like one episode of like Unsolved Mysteries or something.
Basically,
like, is this truly the Ark of the Covenant?
Like, he listened to Fact or Fiction, believe it or not, and he missed the Jonathan Frakes intro.
Wow.
That just said, that's not true.
What's the tallest man you've ever seen?
Did you listen to our episode where I put the believe it or not music behind you doing?
Yes.
It's the best thing I've ever done.
Which episode was that?
I don't know. It was like last week.
Yeah, it was a good one. Anyway, that's right. I just listened to it.
Here's the thing. Okay, the setup of this book is good. If you wanted to do a comic, and I imagine that this was the pitch. The pitch was, there's a bunch of religious artifacts out there in the world, and Todd said yes. And they said, well, what if a former Spawn's cape was mistaken to be one of these religious artifacts, and the Vatican was using it to power up their own undead super soldiers?
Right.
Great. That sounds like
then the Vatican, yeah. So to wrap up the story here, Cog's new assistant, who is apparently psychic, goes to get the cape for Cog and is shot by the deacon guy.
Yeah.
And he says, you won't steal from me 2 times, witch. And he takes the cape. The last piece of the relic won't fall into the hands of the forces of darkness. Here's a great example of the way this translation feels off, okay?
Mm-hmm.
He says, the last piece of this relic won't fall into the hands of the forces of darkness. And the other guy says, you've got what you wanted, now go. I may be ignorant about the forces of darkness, but the police force are on their way.
Yeah, it feels like the first pass at somebody's script.
I may be ignorant about the forces of darkness is a literal translation that doesn't reflect how people talk.
Right.
I may not know anything about the forces of darkness, but I do know the cops are coming, is a more colloquialized version of that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's why we're not digging in too deeply, because if we try to nitpick it, it's not really fair, because it's not like...
I'm trying to look at the story as a whole, and I think I like the story in concept. In execution, I'm sort of like left hot and cold, because when there's times where it's just like 2 characters talking about a bunch of stuff, I'm like, you could really get that over with a lot faster than you are. And but then when there's stuff like the Spawn versus Necrocop fight, cool, I'm into it. That whole sequence is kind of rad. Cog getting Spawn involved, okay, that has to happen. I understand that. They talk all the time. And Spawn never listens, but he does in this, which is kind of funny.
We've got Menon stealing the cape. We've got Menon stealing the cape from the guy and burning him alive. Kind of cool. We see that Menon has basically killed or almost killed everybody in there to get it. He confronts Cog. I like that it says New York, another day. God only knows which one. And he confronts Cog and he says, Did you really believe you could recreate the whole by putting together the pieces? Which is interesting because I guess it implies that Cog has been trying to get his own cape or whatever, or build a whole
That's the
Spawn
one
cape.
thing that's like not clear here is like Cog obviously is working for Mammon here. Like we're finding out. Like I did just as I once again did your job for you. And not maybe not working for him, but like is sort of implying that he did the thing that Mammon was unable to
Yeah.
do. But then what's confusing is that Mammon is Cog giving Mammon the little bit of the cape or vice versa?
I don't know.
Because it's almost like there's a panel missing.
Yeah, and that's kind of why we breeze through this, is because a lot of the storytelling is like that. I think it's literally lost in translation.
Yeah.
This is kind of an interesting little artifact. I'm glad it's one issue and one episode. I think that our listeners, uh, as long suffering as they may be through some of our experiments, may have been a little miffed if this was going to be a whole series of us talking about this comic this way, because it honestly, we kind of breezed through it. There's not a lot to talk about. Spawn versus Necrocop is cool. We're never going to see this again. What's most interesting about it is an artifact of comic making.
Not Necrocop also should come back.
That is true. A Necrocop action figure would be kind of cool, like the cyborg Superman of Spawn.
All the stuff in the back matter, like, and that's the other thing I was going to say is I actually think that the digital painting is doing Bricolot's art kind of a disservice because, like, the inside page, we get to see pencils, and they look sick.
Yeah, like I said, it's an interesting time for digital art.
Like, I would love to see Danny Meeke or Todd inking this. I just think it would be so interesting because he's obviously a good draftsman.
Oh yeah, and I mean I'm loving the like sketches of the Necrocop.
Yeah, so cool. So cool.
If you look at his storyboards, they're like almost exactly the full page.
Yeah.
They're almost fully rendered, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But I guess he probably just took them from that stage and took them a little further. It's just a process that's a little more involved than just going from thumbnail, or well, not necessarily more involved, but that's different from going from thumbnail to full art.
Necrocop with like the brown hood is really cool.
That's true.
Really, really cool. His face is cool. I don't know. This character's cool. I wish we got to see more of him. I like it. His cape is even everything about him's cool. I like this guy.
Yeah, I like the Necrocop. He never got a fair shake.
Yeah, bring back Necrocop. We have enough cyborgs. Why not a cyborg who's
like I said, he's like the cyborg Superman for Spawn.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like cyborg Spawn. Hell yeah, that'd be sick. I would love it. I mean, he was kind of cool here. Cool concept.
Would be interesting to do a similar to Death of Superman type Spawn story where like Al dies again and like 4 different pieces of the K7 Letha go out and we get like
that'd be cool.
4 different people claiming
I just got
Spawn.
some Death and Return of Superman figures today. I got Cyborg Superman.
Eradicator?
And I have Eradicator.
Hell yeah. I love Eradicator. As a kid, I was obsessed with Eradicator because I was like, his costume's cooler. He wears sunglasses.
I have Steel. I have the recovery suit Superman with like all the Kryptonian weapons and shit. And then I have a pre-order, of course, for the Metropolis Kid.
Don't call him Superboy.
That's right.
Lesbian
which
icon.
Comes with like the soft good jackets, goods jacket and everything. Oh yeah, he's canonically FTM. I think that is
true. Yeah. At least on this podcast.
Look, if Jeff Johns can decide it would be cool that Superboy is a clone of Superman and Lex Luthor, and eventually make that happen, that anything is possible.
But that's not the Metropolis Kid Superboy, right? Aren't they different?
No, that's
Connor Kent.
Yeah, that's him.
You know what it is? he's so butch after the 90s with just his like black t-shirt and jeans that I'm like, that's a different character. He's got no style.
Dude, that Connor Kent and Tim Drake, that's my all-time ship.
Have you seen the Absolute Flash design?
Yeah, pretty good.
That's another FTM trans person if I've ever seen one.
Have you ever read the post 52, the 1 year later era Teen Titans after Connor Kent is dead?
I don't think I have.
Oh man, it's so good. It is. I'll never forget. I was on my break at EB Games with a stack of comics that I had bought on
Shout
my
out
way
EB
to
Games.
Work. Yeah,
shout out
now
Funko
GameStop,
Land,
of course. Yeah. Well, okay, whatever. Yeah. And oh, I see, because they all sell Funko Pops. That's right.
No, Funko Land had nothing to do with Funko Pops, and was just the name of a different game store in the Northeast.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, well, I missed that one, unfortunately. I was out of the Northeast by the time that was the thing I would have known about. Anyway, long story short, I remember I was in the back room at EB Games, eating my lunch, reading this comic. I was probably eating either a Subway sandwich or a like Panda Express or some shit, because I worked in a mall. I don't know why I'm giving these details, but anyway, I'll never forget how excited I got when I was sitting there reading the issue of Teen Titans where Tim Drake makes out with Cassie in front of his clone of Superboy, like floating in the tank, and they're like both talking about how much they miss Connor, and they start making out. And I was just thinking, like, man, you're both just projecting how much you want to do that to the kid in the tank.
Yeah.
It's great. It's so good. It's on par with anything the X-Men have ever done. That one moment.
Good for Tim Drake finally coming out.
Exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying.
Now we're just waiting for Dick Grayson.
Dick Grayson fucks. I think if the opportunity to fuck in the right situation came up, he wouldn't think twice.
Dick Grayson is like a little Gambit-y to me.
Kind of like a Daredevil in the way that he just kind of slings it.
Yeah. And Gambit's bi. It's in his name.
Sure. It has to be.
So
if you think any of the X-Men are straight, you don't read X-Men. You
Are there any that are? Let me think about it.
Dr. Nemesis. I guess Dr. Nemesis is probably straight.
Trying to think.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they're like Olympic athletes or WWE fucking wrestlers, man. You get them all in that headquarters. They're all in the mansion together.
And they're like, why not?
It just the hormones start going. The pheromones start going. They have the nicest bodies and the greatest powers in the world.
In a weird way, I think Quentin Quire
reads as straight to you?
In a weird way. Yeah, he reads as like, because he's pretty toxic.
Okay, I hate to use this word.
Okay.
But I could see that only if he were intentionally queer baiting. And there are straight,
which is a thing that he would do.
People that do that,
which is a thing that Quentin Quire would absolutely do, because he would think it was funny. He's a little shit.
Maybe he's got the metrosexual thing going on. I don't know.
I think Quentin Quire might be straight. Although if you're a psychic, you're probably not straight. Never mind.
Yeah,
because there's no straight psychics. So
there's no straight X-Men.
I'm trying to think of
Juggernaut.
No, him and Black Tom Cassidy have been together for 50 years.
You think that they're... I always thought that was like...
No, they're definitely gay. They're life partners in crime.
Wow, I guess that really does create a specific bottom-top situation that does make a lot of sense.
Listen, nothing can stop
why
the
did
Juggernaut.
I never put that? Maybe I wasn't ready for it.
No, you weren't ready for the truth.
Now I am. I've grown a little bit today.
I'm happy
you know what
for
it
you.
is? You know why I never went with that, Pierce? Is because if a straight person were to say that to me, I would be like, you're making fun of gay people. Well.
Elixir? No, healing is gay.
He's all gold.
Yeah, I don't know. Listen, I'm everybody says Cyclops, And I understand why.
No
I
way,
understand
though.
why. I understand
Look,
why.
I'm going to go ahead and say that Jerry Duggan trying to undo Cyclops and Wolverine fucking, and there being like a whole canonical triumvirate, like triad with Wolverine and Cyclops and Jean Grey. Jonathan Hickman gave us that. He gave us that.
Vanessa says that I bring that up too much.
Jerry Duggan, you can't bring it up enough.
Jerry Duggan. She says, I know already. They're fucking on the moon. And I was like, they are fucking on the moon. People need to know about this.
It's great. I mean, look.
This is not an X-Men podcast.
No, it's not. And I'll give my one and only standard broad X-Men opinion, which is anyone who understands that the X-Men are so gay that they can barely function is going to do a great job writing them. Anyone who tries to make the X-Men straight cops is going to be terrible at it.
That's true.
And that's it.
Bishop?
Maybe. Yeah, he's from the future, though, so you never know what the the social mores could be in whatever timeline he's from. Maybe you just get it where you get it.
True. Yeah, that's really tough.
He does have some straighter energy than the other X-Men, though.
There's like a bunch of those, like GW Bridge.
He's not an X-Man.
That's true.
He's not even a mutant. He's just a cop.
But he's around a lot.
He's a cop, though,
of X-Men stories.
Yeah,
that's true.
Bishop also technically a cop.
Okay, here's one. I think he's straight. I think he has to be. It's Cannonball. No, he's not. He's been fucking Robbie since the 80s.
I was gonna say, man, you think they've never tried it?
Never mind.
You think they've never crossed that boundary?
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Actually, I kind of do think that Sam Guthrie's straight.
I could buy that the most.
I think that Sunspot is not, and that because
Sunspot is too rich to be straight.
Right, he's extremely bisexual.
Yeah,
maybe the most bisexual that any character's ever been.
Yeah,
but but Sam Guthrie just feels like he would not be not consenting, but he would try it and then he'd be like, no, that's not for me.
He has a little bit of gay for pay energy, but maybe that's as far as it goes.
Oh boy.
When you're a coal miner's son, $20 is $20.
Like, I don't think his sister's straight.
No, Husk.
No.
She peels off her skin to become another person. You can't possibly be straight when you're that.
But
that's what I'm saying, dude. Wolverine, some people want to say Wolverine's straight. He's been alive long enough that he's fucked anyone.
You know what?
Like, if there's a version of a person,
all of the new
he's gotten curious
kids
about it.
In all the new X 20-year-olds in Uncanny, which I don't know which one is which. Yeah, Uncanny.
Oh, is that comic canonical?
The Horse Girl, she's definitely straight.
Yeah, Horse Girl is definitely straight.
Ember.
I
toxically straight.
Wish them all the best.
Yeah. Ember is homophobic, actually. That's why she won't last long on the X-Men.
Yeah, well, that's
anyway. We haven't talked about Spawn in like 10 minutes, so that means it's time to wrap things up.
This is really good. Yeah. You guys got kind of a fun, casual episode this time. Hopefully you enjoyed it. We've had some really cool stuff on the last few episodes. We hit 100. We hit 100. We did the interview with the Todd father, of course. That was incredible. We had the 101 dismount that was incredibly emotionally heavy. I mean, we got into some serious stuff in last episode.
We did.
And so
now we did this.
Now we did. It's nice to have it's nice to have a little bit of a decompression where we're just kind of enjoying a little bit of Spawn and hanging out. And hopefully y'all enjoyed that as well. It's a little bit of a shorter episode, so you won't have to deal with too much shenanigans. That's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Final thoughts.
I think Simony. This is an interesting comic for the artifact it represents creatively. I think that both in terms of the art style, which was really one of the... it was in an era where this art style was being pioneered. I think it's very cool to see the parts of that have carried on into like modern style art, especially from European creators, like we talked about Christian Ward. And I think it's interesting to see European comic creators do an American superhero basically in their style. It was hard to read as a result of the translation. I think a lot was definitely literally lost in translation, unfortunately. But it wasn't expensive and it's nice looking, and I'm glad to have it on my Spawn shelf. And I had a fun time talking about it, even though we also spent a lot of time talking about which X-Men are gay, which kind of like, it's interesting how much you can do that whether you hate them or love them.
True. Yeah, final thoughts for me. I think that this is I thought it might be a little bit interesting to cover. It was a little less interesting than I thought it would be, but I want to echo pretty much everything that you said. And I like weird experiments within this line. I think that we're seeing it even more now, right? With stuff like Spawn kills every Spawn, where that's like an art style so far removed from what the normal Spawn book is. And then even
Shout out to
dalliances.
friend of the pod,
Yeah,
Rob
friend of the pod,
Duenas.
Rob Duenas. Go buy Spawn kills every Spawn. I like these sort of like genre dalliances, if that makes sense. Like, and we get to see it now with like Gunslinger Spawn, and Scorched is so much more of a team book, and like we're seeing these. And Salmon Twitch is more of a noir. Curse
Well,
of the
it's like
Spawn
Todd was
was
telling us, he's trying new things all the time, trying to push different envelopes and different ideas.
yeah, and even Monolith is like a space sci-fi Spawn story, So like there's like a whole bunch of stuff going on now that this and other minis that were coming out in the 90s and 2000s are definitely precursors to. We haven't touched like Spawn the Dark Ages, which there's a new one coming out relatively soon. Yeah, I think this is interesting. I kind of wish there was a little bit more care put into its American release or its English release, right? I think that would have gone a long way to smoothing out some of the rough edges. And stuff like Necrocop is sometimes simple ideas are just really good. And like I said earlier in the show, if I pitched you what this book is, which is look for an artifact because they're going to bring back super soldiers from the dead and give them Spawn powers. That's good.
I just realized there was that military thing the Grant Morrison did where they were using the like necroplasm to try and like as a weapon or whatever all the way back.
Yeah.
Way earlier. So there's a lot of Spawn lore here that
stuff
they
to
could
do.
pick up on. It's interesting.
And I think that that's the other thing. I think if there were a couple of more references tying it to just a couple of things that happened in the past or something, or just like, oh, because that Jason Wynn tried that already or whatever, like a little thing like that to just like reward us as readers for checking in here, that these other characters know the sort of goings on of our normal book. I think that would have gone a long way. I think that that's the kind of stuff that you can throw in if you're the normal editor and you're like, oh, here's the fix for this weird translation thing that's not going to play or whatever.
Right.
So,
yeah, it could have benefited from some localization.
Is it the worst Spawn story I've ever read? Nah, I've definitely read.
No, even with everything that was lost in translation, it's not.
Yeah, because I think some of the art is really, really cool. I think that Brie Claude had a tough hill to climb in a few spots. Having like two guys with giant red capes fighting in a very small space is tough. Right. But Necrocop looks cool. Spawn always looks cool. As long as you draw Spawn looking cool, you'll be mostly fine. And I think he does nail it. The digital painting aspect, a bit of an artifact of its time. I would kind of love a remastered version of this. I would love to see what it would look like with more modern coloring and the tools that are available to us now, even with him having gotten so much better, to revisit his old pencils, those old files, and see what he can do now.
Even love to see a Spawn cover from him or something.
Yeah, absolutely. So, this was something. This was certainly something.
Pretty fun.
Before we go, George, do you have any recommendations for our listeners this week?
Yeah, I think that you should just spend some time with friends. That's what you should do. In any context, even on the phone, even like Pierce and I are doing right now. just sit down and talk to your friends, check in with them, and see how how they're doing, and just be willing to listen to whatever they have to say. And I've maybe said something like this in a recommendation before, and that's fine. I just think it's a good thing that you should do, and it's something that's on my mind right now. Is spend some time, make some time for for friends in your life and people that you care about, and just give a little check.
Cool. Yeah, you've said that before, but hey, it always rings true. Speaking of friends, my recommendation is the new Captain Planet by David Pepose.
Yeah.
From Dynamite Comics. Please read it. It's really fun. I've seen some stuff that's coming up soon. It's going to be really fun. I've been talking to George, and I've both been talking to David about this. Our entire friendships.
Yeah, like literally 10 years. It was 10 years to the day, basically, that he texted me and was like, I think I have an idea that would be really cool to do a Captain Planet comic.
And we both said probably some form of, who even has the rights to that?
Literally, I think what I said. And now, Dynamite has them, and he's doing it. It's pretty cool to see someone we care about manifesting something that they care about.
Yeah, and absolutely.
Yeah. So. It is also a cool comic. The art is sick. I will say my favorite Planeteer is Kwame, and I know for a fact that there are some cool things with Kwame coming up, so definitely read it. I don't know those spoilers, but of course, you know, my favorite character.
Hell yeah. I always liked Wheeler, mostly because I think Wheeler's a cool name and fire powers are cool. And yeah. Anyway, we're closing in on the summer of Hellspawn. So in July and August, we will be covering all of Hellspawn by Brian Michael Bendis, and some other folks, Ben Temple-Smith and Steve Niles and whatnot. So if you are reading along with us, please just pick up that. There's a omnibus compendium, right? That's like $30, and that will have everything in it. That's all we're doing for July and August. So unless we change our mind, but I don't think we will.
Really bad,
it's kind of
we
fun.
Don't have a good time, but I think we will. So, yeah.
So that's what we're doing, and also I just think it's another fun little corner of the Spawn universe. And I think as we get deeper, and there are more books happening, we're just gonna have to take these little swerves, and that's part of the fun. If you don't like it, start your own podcast and tell us about it, and then we'll share it, and it'll be great.
And you can be part of the Spawn community.
Exactly, because the Spawn community is for everyone, and everyone is welcome in the Spawn community for the most part.
Exactly right. Unless you're being a dick, no dicks allowed.
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
No jerks allowed.
Yeah, dicks are fine.
Yeah.
With that, George, for tonsil of the world,
he gave his only begotten Spawn.
See you later, Hellspawn.
Spawnography!
Spawnography is recorded in Athens, Georgia, and Queens, New York. It's produced by me, Pierce Lydon. Our theme music and logo were composed by George Marston. Episodes come out every Monday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. If you like the show, please rate, review, subscribe. You can find us on social media at Spawnography or at SpawnographyPod. If you'd like to reach out to us directly, you can do so at spawnographypod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and until next time, see you later, Hellspawn.